second.
Productions.
We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers. We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah, dude. There's some Nephilim shit.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's saying shit what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us fight to be slaves. And everybody's just walking around, heading the clouds and wanna wake up to a dead in the grave. By then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Welcome to the end of days. Everybody is slaves, only some are aware that the government released.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Nephilim Death Squad. I am David Lee Corbo, a.k.a. The Raven. That is Top Lobster, the father of disinformation. Before we get into today's guest, I would just like to remind all of our live viewers that this is a 30-minute preview only. Sometime around the 30-minute mark, we're going live exclusively to patreon.com/Nephilim
David,
Death
why are you
Squad.
acting so rigid right now? I don't like it.
Am I rigid? Am I stiff?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's early. It's early. Typically, I'm doing timeline cleanse right now, and we're watching, debaucherous content. It's much easier. This is serious business. Also, don't interrupt my intro again. It's very disgusting.
I'll do what I want, but go ahead. Continue.
Patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad, guys. Sign up there. You can continue watching along, enjoying an ad-free viewing experience, getting access to the episode before anybody else does, and enjoying a little discount code off of merchandise from toplobster.com. Speaking of toplobster.com, don't forget to go over there and pick up your merchandise. Pick up your shirts from Nephilim Death Squad. We have all kinds of super dope stuff for you. Dangerous Retards shirts, Spice Boys, the OG logo, Dayquil, all kinds of fun things await you.
Oh, guys, if you're wondering, too, the holsters have sold out, so they're not there anymore.
That's it.
Can't get them. Yeah,
if you didn't get it, it's because you're retarded, and that's your fault. Joining us today is Nick of the Occult Rejects podcast. Nick, if you would. I'm sorry, he said I was too stiff, so I had to fucking do a button press.
That was awesome.
Nick, if you could, for the audience who might not be familiar with you, let them know where they could find your work.
Thank you so much. I have the Occult Rejects podcast that is available on BitChute, Rumble, YouTube, and then all major podcasts. And I also have occultresearchinstitute.org, which is stuff about the occultism and tons of different topics and tons of different contributors. So definitely check that out. Thank you.
Nice. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna comb through this website. I did take a peek at it when we were talking, and I was like, oh, this seems like a good information hub here. So definitely a useful tool for what we're gonna be, because in the show here the show is basically us stumbling through things that we're interested, but also creating this weird little roadmap as we figure out whatever existence and plane that we're on, or how this whole thing works. So this website, it looks like it could be a pretty useful tool.
I want to say on that note, Top is somebody who really enjoys web design and like branding and things of that nature. And he always, if he doesn't like guys, go back and listen to previous episodes. If he doesn't like it, he'll just say, hey, go there and support it. Right. Yeah. That's what he does. It's like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. He goes, hey, just go there and support it. But he likes Nick's website, so that's nice.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. I know what you mean too, because I do the same thing. Yeah, go check out their amazing work. Go check out their work.
Yeah, and in your mind, you're like, this is fucking poorly laid out, homie.
When is this? How much time do we have left in this episode?
That's what he starts doing as soon as he sees their website. Nick, we were having a fascinating conversation. Well, I didn't want it to have it before the show started, because whenever people start saying interesting things, I'm like, hold on, please save it for the show. But you were in the OTO for how long did you say, Nick?
Just bury the lead, huh? Just
I fucking want to know, dude. I want to get straight into it.
5 to 6 years about.
5 to 6 years. That's incredible. I was thinking that since you have that, where are you right now, Nick? What state?
North Carolina. I was originally in New York when I first started podcasting. Now I'm in North Carolina.
So we do a semi-annual event called Bohemian Grove. I think you need to launch a semi-annual event called the Bro-TO, and that way we can have crossover events. Bohemian Grove meets the Bro-TO.
Yeah. You have like our annual cremation of care.
Yes. I'm down for. It doesn't have to be a mock sacrifice. We can.
Yeah,
we
would
can
you do a real one?
We'll just pick a member of the audience. A member of the
Weakest
audience.
link. Where's Emily? Where's Emily at in the chat?
There she goes. Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
God bless.
He's
the
the most
correct.
annoying person in chat. Let's use that. He's the one who scares everybody away. Come here.
Yeah. We had a couple of those guys. One of them, shout out to Leon. He's out there somewhere. He makes a lot of weird videos about our content, but he's like 80 years old and he wears no shirts and he's got really long nipples, like really long nipples. It's amazing the people that you kind of cultivate. So Nick, I don't know how to start this conversation. I mean, there's so much that I want to know about the OTO, and
let's start. First off, how do you get into this? Like,
yes,
how does your life develop? You're a kid in New York. How the hell do you get into the OTO?
Believe it or not, I mean, as simple as it was, I was, again, I started off with conspiracies. I was much into conspiracies, and I listened to like a lot of people that kind of were heavy into occultism, like Michael Tessari and David Icke, Jordan Maxwell. Like I started off in 2010 with people like that. So, I was very much into occultism. So like I kind of got into that when I was kind of getting into conspiracies and stuff. And at one point I was just like, just for me, not for nothing, like I'm learning all this stuff about these orders and shit, but I still don't know what magic is. So I literally just like Googled like gold. First I looked up Golden Dawn because honestly my OTO wasn't the first choice. But I looked that up. There wasn't anything near me, and I Googled the OTO Lodge, and literally there was one 20 minutes away from me. When I was living in Queens, there was one in Sunnyside. I don't know if you know where that is.
Yeah.
And I was in God, where was I forgot the wow, I already forgot the town I was in. I was like 20 minutes away. So I was like, all right, I guess this is convenient. So I'll go check it out. And these places, believe it or not, if you look for them, they're not hard to find. You will find like either they'll have a website or the OTO has like its own actual website, and you can go and it will show you the locations. It will give you websites if they have any, so you can check out their calendar. And that's what I did with Tahuti Lodge in New York. I checked. I saw that they were near me. I checked out their calendar, and they had a Gnostic Mass coming up. I think they have one like fucking every weekend, but there was one coming up in a few weeks that I was like, oh, I'll be around for that. I'll check it out. And I emailed them and told them that I was interested in coming to the Gnostic Mass. And they said, on that day, just email us again and we'll let you know what's up. Come here, we'll give you directions and everything. And the day of it, I emailed them and they, they gave me directions from all these different points, wherever I could be coming from, the address. And I went and was there 5 to 6 years after the fact.
So whatever happened in that first instance, that hooked you for the next 5 to 6 years. What's interesting about that is like,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I drive around. Like yesterday, I was out with my wife, and we just kind of jokingly pointed out like, oh, there's a Masonic lodge. Like as you pass by, I don't think I've ever passed by anything other than a Masonic lodge that caught my eye. I never even realized if they are out and about, because we're from the similar area. I was in New Jersey. I can't recall ever seeing these things. Maybe it just wasn't on my radar. Maybe it just
what they were. Then I started noticing them. I guess because I was looking for them. Maybe I don't know.
That's like when you drive the red Kia, then you see the red Kia. Okay.
Yes, yeah. I think that happened. I know what you're saying with the Mesa. I never really noticed any of that stuff until I started getting into it.
So what happens then when because this is a Gnostic Mass? Is that the expression that you used? So what does that look like?
I mean, you can go watch it on YouTube. There is one I think on Vimeo that's a little bit more on par because it will show the nudity of what happens because there is a nudity in it. But it's basically like the OTO's version of church, I guess, in a sense, and it kind of shows you, I guess, the magician crossing the abyss and coming back and telling people the experience. It's basically kind of, what in my opinion, what it shows. I also think it gets into like deep symbolism. I think it even explains like how the eyeball works and all that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. What do you mean by that? It explains how the eyeball works.
Well, that's something actually. I should maybe preface this now just to get it over with, because I do like to try to put this out there. If people are really interested in the occult and some of the deepest secrets of secrets, learn exactly how the eyeball works. Look at the eyeball and start looking at certain parts of it, especially the Zonials, the Zin, the optic nerve, the hyaloid canal, and the lens, and you'll start to see sigils and occult symbolism. And another opinion of mine, some of the deepest secrets of secrets in occultism is the experience of death, the feelings and the visions you will see when it happens. Those are some of the deepest things I think is in the occult. And I do think in the Gnostic Mass, and I think in their initiations, I was shown a lot of eyeball symbolism.
Right. What I understand about the eyeball, I mean, I'm not a ophthalmologist or anything, but I did have LASIK surgery, so I have a cursory understanding of why my vision was bad. Like there's a material built up in my eyeball, somewhere around my eyeball, and the light coming in is not able to refract and output correctly, which is why I saw blurry. And after they did the LASIK surgery, obviously they removed that like plaque or whatever kind of decay that's on my eye, and now I have 20/30 vision or whatever it is.
I'm wondering if that was like your aura erotics. I know we build up crystals around that too.
It's possible.
I don't know about that stuff, but just thinking.
Is there any aspect of like light coming in and light being reflected as like is that like a Gnostic process?
Good, yeah. I would even say if you were to go look at how light starts to reflect off your eyeball, you'll see the sigil of Lucifer. You'll see the
I've seen that.
You'll see that. That's exactly how light reflects off of your lens in your eyeball.
See if I can pull that up.
Yeah,
I know what you're talking about. I've seen this before. The sigil of Lucifer, and then light.
Your eyeball even projects out 6 feet.
Oh, that's interesting.
Project out 6 feet from your eyes. It's a relationship between what's out there, and there's a lot going on for your eyes. And it's considered an extension of your brain. It's all one part, technically.
With the 6 feet thing now, I mean, we're all from New York, so we're familiar with the stay 6 feet apart. What do you make with that?
Listen, when they said 6 feet apart, and they started making people wear masks, and like I don't know, I mean, you looked at my logo. I was wearing a hood without a mouthpiece on it. Yeah. You know, just to me, I was like, this seems very occult and ritualistic. That's what I thought. 6 feet. I mean, it's kind of expected to have a 6 to 9 feet circle when you're doing ritual work. So now you're telling me to cover my mouth like I would regularly with my hood, and not have somebody within 6 feet of me. It sounds like I'm doing a ritual.
Whoa. Do you think?
I want to show this real quick on screen, and Nick, if you could tell me if this is what you were talking about, right here.
Yes.
That's it, right? So this is like beyond. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it. That's great. I love that you even picked up the other picture with it.
Yeah, but I mean, this is something that, as a retard, this is well beyond my grasp of understanding.
So
I
that's
can't
pointing
even
to the pineal gland.
The pineal gland is, in my opinion, what you got to crack open to have a magical experience.
That's interesting. So these are okay. On this show, we believe in much of the biblical narrative, but I don't discount Gnosticism and much of the New Age movement, although that's kind of a misnomer, right? This idea that it's New Aged at all. It's really these ancient teachings that are being rehashed, probably in the 2000s. But when I see what these teachings have to offer, I recognize a lot of it as being valid. But there are a lot of people within the space that then use these things, and maybe this is a bit of a hard-hitting question for you, but there are a lot of people within the space that use these things to discount much of the biblical narrative, but I don't think that it does. Instead, what I see
think it makes it more beautiful.
I see that it's fractal in nature, and that these elements, they repeat themselves, within our own biology, but they also repeat themselves on a microscopic level. All the way up to the macro.
If God is a part of us, I mean, it's going to be reflected within us. So I do think that's all part of the beauty of showing you.
So, well, let me ask you this then. When it comes to these teachings, my contention with them is they're valid. They're incredibly powerful because they have to do with understanding the very makeup of this realm that we inhabit, and by nature of understanding the realm that we inhabit, it then gives us the ability potentially to manipulate the realm that we inhabit, which becomes problematic because of the corruptive or corrosive nature of power on an individual. And so it seems to me that these teachings themselves aren't inherently bad. It's just twofold, I would say. Number one, where did these teachings come from? It often seems that the methodologies that we receive in regards to the Gnostic teachings or the Hermetic principles and things like that were given by some deity. They can often be attributed to have been taught by a spirit, channeling some sort of entity, revealed this thing to somebody in a ceremony. And then the other part of it is that absolute power corrupts absolutely. So what ends up happening is these people recognize this as being powerful,
Yes.
and then they go on to utilize it to their own benefit,
pieces of
often to
shit.
the detriment of other people.
Yes. Totally agree with you, sir. Totally agree with you. In my experience, after I finally had a magical experience, I will say for me, that's when the judgment really comes in. For me, like, you know how they say, like, oh, you know, you get judged by God or whatever.
Mm.
Like for me, if I've had literally have had an experience with God, which is what I believe I did. I'll be totally honest with you. Whenever I've had a magical experience, and this is something that is probably for me, it was one of the reasons why I continue to do it, and I'm sure it's why pieces of shit continue to do it. When you open up your eyes, you're going to know shit you never knew before. It's gonna sound crazy and sound silly. It's very much like the Matrix, but you're not actually gonna know kung fu. But you know, Neo would wake up and be like, "I know kung fu now." It's very much like you will understand things you did not understand before. And in my opinion, like if I take that gift from God and then start fucking manipulating people
Mm-hmm.
to better myself and make other people fucking dumb and just suck money out of their pockets, that is black magic. And in my opinion, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing with the gift I was just given. You know, I should be inspiring other people to have their own experience. That's about it.
Yeah.
You know, tell people my experience and say you can have this experience and you can take off the handcuffs as well. Like I start telling sci-fi stories and fucking whatever fairy tales.
Let's get into your experience, because now I'm interested to hear like what happened, how long it started off, man. Start wherever you think you need to.
You know, this was near the ending of my experience with, I guess, like the OTO as well. And you know, being part of that. For the most part, you know, to try to like just get through this whole time and that to get specific. I will say there was a lot of different reasons or beliefs that I had about magic or why I was even practicing it. It was never really to actually ever do anything bad to anybody else. It was always really just to help change myself or kind of have like a GPS to get where I want to go and stay out of the matrix as much as I can. At some point, I did start to have kind of like, this is just my opinion. My belief is that like if you're trying to change anything in this world to fit where you want to go, it's technically kind of black magic because I'm gonna have to go against someone's will or something's will to make that happen. I'm gonna have to start bending things to my will in this reality, this world. And I started getting much more deeper into kind of working on myself and just having an experience with God, and started doing a lot more like shadow work or like self inventory, a lot of theurgy, like praying and then, you know, just invoking God, asking God for help, just doing a lot of prayer and meditation and like mantras, kind of. And once that started, I started doing that. I will have to say, I started having kind of like breakthroughs in magic, and or it just felt like there's something there. There's something was going on.
When you say God, who are you talking about?
I guess just it's something that's created everything. Everything that, you know, we came from that. You know, the all.
Right.
You know, so I really, I it's kind of hard for me to really put any words on God.
Have you ever had any imagery associated with him, Nick?
No, I mean, no, not really. No, I mean, sometimes I guess I could say like some of my visions that I have that are always repeating whenever I cross the abyss. I mean, I consider the eclipse kind of like an image of beauty before I see God, but no, I wouldn't say that there's an actual image specifically for God. I mean, no.
The reason that I ask is because
Some people do. Yeah. So.
right. And have you heard of this sort of lion-headed serpent that the Gnostics will often call like some aspect of God? And even that gets a little bit confusing because it's not like the end-all be-all, but it is a form that they attribute to God.
Yeah, Crowley even like ripped off that symbol. Did something with it.
Yeah. Well, we've talked to somebody in specific on this show. It was a gentleman who in his 20s was diagnosed with bipolar schizophrenia, and then he overcame it by treating the hallucinations, I'm using quotes for the listening audience, as external to himself, not hallucinations, but actually that he's being beset upon by something adversarial. So he ends up overcoming this that way. But one of the experiences that he has at some point during the height of this, you know, what is medically diagnosed as schizophrenia, he sees this snake-bodied, lion-headed entity emerge out of a portal in his room, and it was interesting because he didn't have any grounding for that experience. Later on, he would find that this is what the Gnostics call God, or at least they claim that this is what God looks like in some aspect or another, which was to him really sort of groundbreaking. And we've even read recently from our show NDS Chronicles somebody having a drug induced experience where they fell essentially into some sort of like a dark void, and the only entity that was there was this lion who kind of said, "Oh, looks like you're far from home," and then essentially sends him back. And so the reason that I ask is because this lion-faced entity makes several appearances, and if you're looking at the Bible, it's like, well, there's a lot of angelic or Elohim that also have the attributes of a lion one way or another, whether it's multiple heads like the cherubim, or one of the faces I believe is a lion, or there's other species that are often described as that way. So this symbol of the lion seems pretty heavy in the spiritual realm.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I've kind of made like a logo of my own version of that myself. I've even mentioned that on the Occult Rejects. I mean, I've pumped out a lot of occult art recently, and I'm trying to just give people ideas of like what certain art can look like for certain things that you're trying to get across. That image to me can very much explain a magical experience in itself. It's just I've never seen anything like that in my magical experience. But I could see that being something that you could use to describe, in a sense, a change that went on within oneself. Even the snake, I think the snake is hugely used for eyeball stuff. Your pupil does screws closed like spins closed. And I think a lot of snake symbolism is used, like on the hermit card. A lot of times there's snakes like underneath the hermit or whatever, like wrapping around the orphic egg. You know, again, the egg with the snake spinning around it, your pupil's going to spin closed and your sclera is white. You know, you're getting the whole symbolism of the white and the black. But I forgot where I was going with that. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you touched on something there that's been a large part of the conversation we've been having, but I actually do kind of want to put a pin in that orphic egg and return to it in a minute.
Oh yeah, I was talking about the lion and the snake. Yeah, for me, I've never seen that, but I do think it's, again, like I've even tried to spoof off that image to get a point across.
So you mentioned earlier that part of this process for you was a lot of like self-auditing, I believe might have been the expression that you used. And
yeah. Well, I called it shadow work, or like self-inventory.
yeah. Self-inventory is the expression that you use. Now that to me seems reminiscent of even like Scientology has like.
Yeah,
a
when
lot
you
of
said auditing,
self-auditing.
it was like, oh, Scientology.
Well, I mean, it's not even just the. It's not
Calm
just
down here.
Yeah.
Self-inventory.
We're pretty close over here to clear.
Yeah, I wasn't holding on to any shit trying to get clear. You know?
Well, but hear me out though. So, I recognize that in a lot of spiritual work, there is this self-auditing. I mean, within Christianity, there's the admission of sin and the repentance of sin, which is a sort of a form of self-auditing, or at least you could liken it to it. Even when you have psychedelic experiences, oftentimes the insights that you glean are really about yourself. I've taken quite a bit of mushrooms before, and it was the entire experience was more or less like, why do I behave the way that I behave? Where do my ideas come from? And it was able to kind of track things down to the root, which in a way felt like, it was a deeper understanding of self, but in that way, it's kind of a self-audit, is it not? So I find it fascinating that regardless of what would these secret schools, is that what they're called?
Secret societies,
secret societies, or if you're in a shamanistic kind of experience where you're utilizing drugs to this self-auditing, this understanding of self comes up quite a bit. I imagine this is an important component to this process.
I think it is. In my opinion, in order to have a magical experience, you're gonna have to let go of like a lot of fears, guilt, and ties to this world in order to have that. And like, let's say, even if you're just not, totally balanced and you still somehow cross the abyss, my opinion, when you come back, you're going to have to be really well balanced and be okay in the head, because you're going to have to deal with shit that you may not have expected to know once you open your eyes. I even made a post recently And it spoke truth for me. Sometimes when practicing magic, I will get answers to questions that I did not ask. And that's like the insanity of chaos. Because you may get shown a reality that you are not ready to actually accept. And you're going to have to deal with that now. And it's like, oh, I wasn't even worried about that. And now you just fucking slapped me in the face with a knowing instead of a belief that I wasn't looking for. Not to explain, but it's just like it can kind of rake you, shatter you a little bit. And if you're not a strong enough person, it may freak you the fuck out.
Are you ever suspicious that you're being shown something that's not true?
No, not really, because none of it's really bad. It's just when you all right. I guess this shit happened to me probably like when I was 40. No, maybe even earlier. I think it was like my late 30s. That's how many years that I've already been programmed to believe something. You know what I'm saying? It's like from my experiences, I can't believe I've been living a lie. It's hard to explain, but like physics and if you had a magical experience, in my opinion, you're gonna have to question everything that you've believed because it doesn't make sense for that to actually be a reality. Going by how you've been brought up and how you've believed the world to be, it shouldn't happen. So how do you explain this now? I've been lied to about the reality that I'm living in.
This is something that is, well, it's been happening to a lot of people over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
And you can see the ways in which that's sort of a... Go ahead,
You
Tom.
just said... Yeah, no, hold that thought because I don't want to skip over what we just said here where we're talking about the 6 feet apart stuff. And he's like, it looks like a ritual to me. And I was going to ask you if you think... Can people take part in a ritual that they're not actively consenting to? Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
they just have to be in love with the person doing it, and they're fucked.
They just have to be in love with the politics that are doing that to them. And
yeah, politician, music artists, any of those people. As long as they love them, they're fucked.
And that's where you get those big Super Bowl events, right? Where you've got like this beloved artist on the world stage. Yes, so they're manipulating the energy, they're using the symbolism, they're using the geometry, and they're putting you through. You're the unwilling participant in a. Somebody said once, I forget what it was, but it was like by this time the public has already been initiated to some degree, right? It's just to what degree have you been initiated because you've bore witness to these ceremonies, you've played a role, and you've even been part of the energetic exchange in these ceremonies.
Yeah. Besides that and just exposure, I mean, I think that's another huge thing for any magician. The more people know you exist, the stronger it's going to make you. That's what will make you a god in this reality, is living on through people's minds. That's why Elon Musk is so powerful. Kanye West, he does dumb shit to stay in people's minds.
What do you think, Nick? Do you think that this is on the 20th? I said something. I said it's time for Kanye West to reemerge. That would have been almost exactly 2 weeks ago.
He has to stay. He's probably got a part somewhere in the script down the road, and he has to stay relevant until then.
I think so. I think he does have a part in the script. I think it's part of this. It's multifaceted, but I think right now it's the Jewish sentiment and the way that it's developing on Twitter and the way that it's developing kind of in this larger conversation. I think he plays a role in that. Same as Elon Musk. And I said on the 20th that it was time for him to reemerge, and all of a sudden he does. And when he does, what's the first thing he does? Well, actually, the first thing he did was he made a bunch of tweets that were pretty fucking funny, actually. And I thought that was a lot of fun. I said, okay, cool. We got cool Kanye back. And then he's like, hey, look at my wife's tits. And I'm like, that's not fun. That's not. I miss the old Kanye. You know?
Yeah. Can't you put like a mask on and have a little flag or something and say something?
Do something.
Now it's like you're like fucking pimping your girl out.
And that's the thing that upsets me, right? Because this is the same guy that made Jesus is King, which I thought was a phenomenal album, and he's one of my favorite artists. He always has been. He might be my favorite artist. And I'm not somebody who absorbs a tremendous amount of music, so that's not saying much. It's not like I'm a music savant by any means. I just like
very
Kanye
intelligent,
West.
very talented. I actually do.
Yeah,
I'm not huge into his stuff, but I do think he is.
He's definitely he plays, just going back to what we said before, a much larger role in the script than I think a lot of people give him credit for, and I think we're going to see that come to pass. But what do you think at all? What is he doing? Do you think this is the real Kanye?
No, I think they all play characters to an extent. I mean, I'm sure there's some. I would even say sometimes when he's a little off, that might be the more real him after fucking with magic. Because I've even said that before. You fuck with magic too much or too often, you'll end up like Kanye West or Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Like on the regular, that will be you.
There was a Kanye West video that came out. I think it was We Used to Be. I forgot what the hell the title of it is. It came out in like 2007. It was a long time ago. And you know, long story short, he's at a dance. He's at a party. He's drugged up. He's drunk. And he's just navigating through it. It's like a fever dream. Next thing you know, he ends up in a bathroom. And he is cutting out of his own gut this small bear, sort of. I remembered it as
dropout thing he's got going on.
Well, that's what I thought it was, but when I rewatched it, I was like, that doesn't even look like. My memory was skewed. I thought it looked like the college dropout bear. I still think it represents the same thing that bear represents for him, which is, I don't know, sort of this innocence. It was associated with his mother, the death of his mother. He's called it a sacrifice, and then in this video, he's taking this bear out, and he gives it a small knife, and he motions to it to kill itself. And then this bear does it. It jams the knife in. It opens itself up. Its intestines fall out. And then, you know, Kanye returns to the party. Now, even in the grand scheme of things, the albums in between where this happened, it was like definitively the albums that were representative of like an old Kanye West. And then after that video, he goes on to release like, what is it? My Beautiful Dark Nightmare, or whatever the hell the name of the album is. And this was right after 808s and Heartbreak. And then he just goes into this really significant cultural moving Kanye West after this moment. So that's a guy, yeah, that's just steeped in this magic. And I maybe you're right. Maybe it causes you to lose your mind if you look too long into the abyss.
Well, I see. My opinion. This is like kind of what happens, and I even think this is part of psychic warfare. Is you're gonna just throw somebody out to the abyss. My opinion: when you start fucking with magic, you are losing form. And believe it or not, the less structure and the less form to things is the most chaotic and scary it can get because you can't understand it. It's hard to explain, but like, I do think due to the lack of structure and starting to get formless, it can take a toll on your brain, on your psyche.
Is that
it's like you start unraveling your own identity.
Is that what you're talking about when you're expressing this idea of the abyss that you're continuing to cross?
Yeah, well, I'll just throw that out there too. Like I mentioned before, some of the secrets of secrets. In my opinion, if you're actually having a real magical experience, you are committing temporary suicide. You're separating your soul from your body.
Okay, hold on, wait, Chop, I think we should.
Yeah,
because that right there was a really heavy bomb you just dropped on us, and I want to take that away from the people actually, and I want to make them come over to patreon.com/Nephilim.
I saw the thing pop up on the bottom too. I was like, oh, this is perfect.
That was perfect timing, because this is something that is. I'm excited to explore this. This is something that I used to get deeper into, and then when I became a father and a husband, I kind of backed off that because I had to be able to build a life, you know. But what you're talking about right now, you're cooking. Guys, listen, if you want to listen to the rest of this episode, you got to go over to patreon.com/Nephilim Death Squad. Continue watching along, enjoying an ad-free experience, and gaining access to the episode before anybody else does. Otherwise, just give it a couple of days, and the episode will release for free. After some light editing, guys. But otherwise, bye-bye. All right. So this is a. Can you just repeat that? It's a form of suicide. Let's start with that. What do you mean by that? A form of suicide?
In my opinion, to have a magical experience, you're actually going to kind of like, your soul's going to slip out of your body. You're going to have to be okay with like giving up everything in a little moment of time. Like, I mean, that's the ultimate sacrifice. You're going to have to, I mean, in a sense, if you want to get into, like, you really look at it. One, not to get too deep into it, I do think, again, your eyeballs are put a play into this. Like the way you're even seeing when your body changes, there's an alchemical process going on inside of you, I think, before you actually click out. But like the light in your eyes will go out. And you will kind of start like riding back up your eye. And fuck, I forgot where I was going with that. Fuck,
well, we're talking about this idea of these experiences being a form of suicide.
Yeah. There was something I was trying to get to that. You will, in my opinion, there's two things I want to preface before we even start getting into this, because I saw certain comments. Now, first off, I was not even doing drugs for probably about 17 years. I wasn't even smoking weed. So when I had these experiences, there was no drug use actually at all. It wasn't until COVID that I was like, just to deal with these crazy motherfuckers, I got to start smoking weed again, because it was just fucking insanity. I was like, I got to go out into public stone to deal with this silliness. So I started smoking weed then. That was after any magical experiences I had. And when I had these experiences, I was sitting in a chair and no ritual was even done. Just meditation. In my opinion, in the meditation, just due to doing it over years and letting your body start to calm down. Believe it or not, we've all heard these stories probably about like all these monks that go into these meditations and look like they're dead. Yeah. In my opinion, just even put it this way. If you think God isn't in the physical form, I mean, he might be within all of us, but what makes you think a physical form is going to be able to talk to a spirit? No, you're going to have to separate the flesh. And the thing I was getting about too with the eyeball, even in the back of your eye, all the way in the back of your eye, before you go up the optic nerve and you take the sunlight and transmute it into electricity, which pumps and powers your whole body. Once you get to that point, there is blood in the back of your eye, not in the front, but there's blood. And if you're about to give up your body and you're leaving that part of your eyeball, there may be a blood sacrifice involved, but it's just yours.
Interesting. Whoa. Interesting.
You're going to have to kill yourself and everybody else technically in your world because you have an attachment to them. You have a love for people, and you're going to have to slay their images in your mind to where they don't exist, and you take the handcuffs off, and you give up every fucking thing you have fell in love with and decide to give it up to talk to God. Because I'm the one who walked away from him. He hasn't walked away from me. I fell in love with everything that Lucifer wanted to give me with my eyes open. I'm in Lucifer's world. I'm addicted to everything that shows light. I have to give that shit up and talk to God. That's my opinion. So
it's not an opinion. That's like we talk about on the show. It's a principle here. This idea of blood sacrifice. Like a lot of people will, be like, well, why would God make it so that you have to do sacrifices in order to get X, Y, Z? It's like, well, that's just the principles of this world, man. I mean, he asked when he asked Abraham to slay his son, it's sort of the same thing. It's like this is a blood sacrifice. His Jesus Christ, it's a blood sacrifice in order to do whatever needs to be done here. There actually has to be a physical thing that happens.
It's like part of the ability to transmutate this realm.
Yes,
that's how you do it.
Those are the rules. Those are the rules.
Yeah, those are the rules. Look, this is okay. So what you're talking about, Nick, is endlessly interesting to me because my brain is going everywhere right now. I know that there's a functionality of fear within this process, right? And fear is this, they call it like the mind killer, right? And the Bible says, fear not, all these times over and over again. Every psychedelic experience I've ever had was all the positive aspects of it laid on the other side of giving up and allowing this fear to fade from me. Because much of the fear in everything is about your ability to control the scenario, right? Because it's the fear of the unknown. You don't know where this is going if you can't control it. So when you're doing psychedelics, or even a meditative process that gives you insight to these corners of your mind that you're not typically accessing, there is, especially when it lays within yourself, right? This chaos, these, whatever primordial chaotic waters that sort of live within you to some degree, or you can access. It's fucking terrifying. It's terrifying to look at these things. And so when you hold on to it, like you said something about, you have to kill all of these things that are meaningful to you. When I was younger, I don't think I nailed this process by any means at all. But I had that experience where for whatever reason, I was on a tremendous amount of ecstasy and alcohol, but the procedure or the process
for whatever reason,
no, that's not the whatever reason. For whatever reason, I was shown a series of images of things that I loved, and then they were being destroyed. And that thing that I loved that was being destroyed was fucking way too much for me to handle. I think I was like 16 years old, and it ended finally. I was like, I love my mom, and it showed my mom just fucking like bursting into guts and blood, and I had to get up. I got up, and I saw through a film of red. But after this moment, because that wasn't the end of my psychedelic use, I realized because of that experience that I was, well, not I just realized that fear was the driving mechanism that was causing me to like crash out in these experiences, and that if I could let go, that I wouldn't have at least at least I could control how I felt about the things I was being subjected to. And by that I mean, if I let go of the fear, then I no longer have to be subjected to it, and then I could go on this experience wherever it takes me. And that, by the way, echoes into the physical realm and becomes sort of the guiding rules for how you interact with this realm. It's like everything that is good oftentimes is on the other end of fear. And that's with any journey that you're going on, right? Like we talk often about the hero's journey and how we're all able to go on this journey to go delve into chaos and retrieve something valuable and come out of it. But you don't go there if you give in to fear. So this fear mechanism plays a huge part in stopping you, and it's the key to what's that?
The orphan even tells you that. Don't fear.
Yes. I mean, they say it's.
You'll see them before you have a magical experience. Too.
Wait, who will you see before a magical experience?
In a way that I think you're viewing it, you will see kind of the orphan to an extent right before you blast off. You know, yeah. I mean, one thing too that you're even mentioning about fear. If you start understanding what you're actually going through and what's happening to you, do you know like what you have to be okay with to even practice magic still? If you start realizing I'm actually committing suicide and there's a chance I may not come back, you're going to have to deal with that fear to even keep going with it.
That's it. Yeah. And they call it like the ego death, but I don't think
there was a feeling. There is a specific feeling I have only felt experiencing magic that when you feel that feeling come over your body, you know what's going to happen. And you have to, in a split second, make that decision. Am I willing to give it all up, to have a moment with God again and maybe not come back?
What's that feeling like? Can you describe that a little bit?
Whenever I have messed with magic, practiced magic, you know, I will get these visuals too, but then these feelings will come up right near the end before I start to, you know, I guess I call it blasting off or riding the lightning. It will start from the bottom of my feet and it will almost start to feel like energies like kind of rising up. And like, let's say by the time it gets to my knees, everything below it has disappeared. Like it actually feels like I'm being erased. Like it just is disappearing. And we'll start to like kind of almost like Tron. You remember back in the day when it showed like the guy getting sucked into the computer?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I've seen that. And I was like, yo, that's exactly how I felt.
Like where he's kind of digitally like pixelating. He's yeah.
It's like sucking him in from like bottom up. And or maybe it was top down. I don't remember, but it just reminded me of that. But like it will start to go up. And as it gets like closer to like my stomach and chest area, it's like I start to feel it build up within myself. And then all of a sudden it will feel like the best way I can explain it is like if I was laying on the beach and the waves crashed and the water was rolling up the shore and I was laying there and somehow like my feet were open and the water could go through my body, you will literally start to feel like these waves of trickling going through your whole body. And then it just starts to like build up into here. And then at some point, another thing is this whole time I'm doing this, I am pressing on my pineal gland. I'm like putting pressure on it like really hard and holding it to hold the image I'm even seeing. And at some point, something happens. I think the polarity changes and my forcing now feels like something fucking like, it's like pulling the trigger. I mean, technically, even with the images that I'm seeing, it looks like, you know, a blast of looking down the trigger. Like it just a fucking bullet just comes flying at you. And it feels like now that you're like, again, like your pushing has somewhere taken a magnetic spin and now it's flying back at you. All of a sudden it feels like something cracks in my head. And then all that pressure comes all the way up. It feels like a vacuum just sucking right out of me and dissipating out the top of my head. Right. It's interesting right where the Jews put their yarmulke. Every time, right there. And for me, it'd be easy to see, but if you put a yarmulke on my head and then took a picture of it, it would look like a fucking eyeball and a pupil. I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But
that's interesting. That's
on your head for sure.
I don't know. Yeah. On my head, you could easily see that. Yeah, but no, it comes out right back there. And at that moment, it literally feels like I just like lost. I go weightless. Literally feel the hate, the guilt, the fear, everything just start to melt off. And I feel completely weightless. And all I feel is like if you took the feeling of love and magnified it by 1,000,000 times, something that you can't even explain in this world, that is exactly what everything gets replaced with. And I just feel like just this vibrating feeling of intense love. And I just get these visions, and it feels like even in my head that I just start spreading out, and you become like part of the fabric. and you're just like you're part of whatever you're seeing. You're not like separated from it. It's like you're in it. Just believe it or not, as weird as it is, and I've always said I think NASA's just occultism. Whatever. It's part of the occult part of the government. A lot of their images of what auroras and all this shit out in space. It's a lot of what I see.
Interesting.
You're doing like a realm slip, but you're doing it without the use of psychedelics, which most people will use. Are you employing like the practices of like remote viewers, like a dark room or I don't know, float tanks or stuff like that? Or you're just
I had used a float tank, but I never tried to like practice magic in a float tank.
You probably have to go a lot.
But that would definitely there are certain things. I mean, maybe if I get into it or not with the visuals with magic, I can bring myself very close to having a magical effect and not doing it now. I can do that in a deep meditation. I was able to do that extremely fast in a float tank.
Huh.
But I did not blast off.
As far as these visuals go, because I've always had the ability to do a thing that is seemingly useless. And it's just that if I
autopilot erection.
No, not the autopilot erection. That I could do, and that's also fucking useless. I'm kind of the king of useless shit. So one of the things that I can do is I can close my eyes and pick one spot in particular in the sort of the darkness, and there's some fluctuating color there. Everybody knows that, right? If you close your eyes, you're not just seeing black. Like sometimes you're seeing undulating clouds of, I don't know, other shades.
These bursts are just like
bursts and shit like that. So if I pick one spot in that, as if it is actually a physical canvas that I'm looking at, and I kind of hone in on it, I can move all that shit out of the way. All the expanding, contracting colors. And then I'm just left with wheeling stars. Just stars, like black canvas and stars, and I'm moving through them. And that's fucking it. That's the end of it. It never yields anything. I mean, sometimes I'll see other stuff while I can't close my eyes. Fucking unbelievable. Sometimes I'll see other stuff that, like, I don't know, looks like sometimes it looks like it's a spot that wants to open up. But otherwise, it's nothing. I've been able to do it my entire life, and it feels like absolutely nothing. But is that part of something? Do you see shit like that?
Mine all starts off with at some point when I'm meditating. Again, now I said I always focus on my third eye. Eventually, I could spend 15, 20 minutes just getting into a meditation, doing like work where I'm just like visualizing energy go up and down, start focusing on my chakras. But eventually, once I focus on my third eye and start pushing on it while I have my eyes closed and I'm meditating, it will all of a sudden get extremely black. And you're talking about a star. Now, I know Crowley, and again, when I bring this guy's name up, I'm not trying to promote him or pimp him out. I do think he was a degenerate, but I do think he was an occult genius. His whole thing with every man and every woman is a star. I will see one star at a bunch of them. And if I push on my pineal gland as I catch it in my image, it's almost like I have to like lock onto it. I will catch that one burning dot, and eventually it will start to come closer and it turns into an eclipse. But it does look like a burning star, like in the night sky. Like it literally looks like burning, glowing white. And like there's like these weird shapes that if you were to draw clouds on a book and you just took whatever the pencil was or the pen that you used to draw it and like threw that into, I guess, like black, but shined light behind it, you'd see like these outlines like in black to where it almost looks like clouds behind a burning or in front of a burning white dot. It's really hard to explain because, again, even with magic, certain visuals and feelings I've had, I can't even explain it in English.
You're pushing on.
I'm inside myself, not with my finger, like
within
myself. I'm holding on to the chakra and I'm pushing onto it.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I will see that white dot. You will get like this. It looks like this burning star in the darkness. And then if I lock onto it and pull it close, it turns into an eclipse, and then that's when all the shit starts coming after that.
I would consider our show a Christian show in the sense that we believe Jesus Christ is a central figure and that he did die for our sins and that he is the way. And I almost feel like what happened is mankind got really corrupted with sort of the offspring of these angels and humans, and it corrupted our genome, but also the teachings that were giving us, they twisted them and inverted them when they gave them to us. And then we used them and they corrupted us as well. And so, but that being said, and I feel like Jesus Christ kind of wiped that slate clean, where things almost spiritually got overly complicated, and so, but I recognize these things as like innate to some degree, right? Like the fact that you can do these and glean these things doesn't necessarily, there's nothing that says that they're bad or that they're evil. Really what you're gleaming is just a deeper understanding of the realm that we inhabit, because it's far more than physical, right? It's a spiritual realm, predominantly a spiritual realm that we inhabit. And so, but because of the way that Christianity has kind of sterilized itself and given this much more palatable version to people, and I don't know if that's because, if that's purposeful subversion or if that's meant to bolster the church so that there's more tithes or whatever the case may be, we've given people a watered down version of it. And then what we've done is we've turned to these teachings, and instead of cautioning people against them, we've really just outright called them evil. And it's like, is it evil to notice that, like, let's say like numerology, for example, that there is some sort of inherent numerological value to the realm that we inhabit, or like a sacred geometry? Is it evil to observe that geometry seemingly plays a huge role in not only our physical realm, but in the spiritual realm? And it seems like we've thrown the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, let me ask you this, Nick. Have you had, I myself have had run-ins with negative entities, and you're doing something that's almost akin to like a psychonaut. Have you had any run-ins with something that you deemed was ill-intended or negative?
No, and the only time anything ever happens, or like whenever it stops my experience, it's due to me like starting to think like about what I'm doing. Like I start thinking itself and start questioning what am I and what's going on, and then it ends. But everything is, for me, it's always been a positive experience. Again, sometimes I guess sometimes maybe certain things that might make sense to me after the fact might be a little bit hard to swallow, but I will say it's always been a positive thing for me.
Do you
there's been times maybe earlier in my magical career when I was trying to change this world, maybe I don't know if I got, maybe I just ended up with picking up dirt shit. Maybe your life may not just go the best when you're trying to affect everybody else's.
Well, that's interesting. I found the same case when I was younger and I was homeless. That was, interestingly enough, the time that I decided it was, when I should start attacking and exposing these conspiracy theories.
Yeah,
it was like I didn't want to do my own shit. I was homeless. I didn't want to take care of me. Instead, I was ready to tackle the rest of the world. It kind of feels like a fool's errand. Now I'm much more comfortable with, I guess it is internal works, right? It's you and your relationship with God. You don't get too excited and go out and try to evangelize to the world and fix all the problems. You said it before, this is Lucifer's world right now. And you're not going to fix that. But you can fix you.
Yes. And one thing I do want to just toss out there too, some people might find this a little hard to believe, but due to having magical experiences, I do have a lot more respect and admiration for Catholicism and Christianity and the Bible, believe it or not. It has actually made me find it to be more beautiful work.
That was very much the way that I came to it too. Like, I started in occultism and trying to understand those things. And it's not that I ever got well versed in it, but I recognize the elements of it, in our culture and in our society. And I wasn't comfortable with the flippant dismissal. Oh, these things are just put there because they're what would you call it? Like, inflammatory, and that's a way to kind of, like, when people are putting it in their music videos or in Hollywood films, it's like, oh, that's just to be edgy. And that was kind of what I got a lot of my childhood, was like, oh, that's just to be edgy. So I had to take it upon myself to look in these things because, especially back then, you don't really have anybody that's going to explain them to you. And then over time, I used to look at the Bible and Christianity and everything as, I don't know, I didn't look at it closely, but I dismissed it outright as being like, religious institutions are corruptible, and also, who are they to say that they have it right when there's so many different denominations and so many different other religions? And then as I got older, I realized that everything that I had been looking at relates to this Christian narrative so intimately that it was worth looking at. And then when I started looking at it, I was like, oh, there's definitely something here. So I can see how that people don't. I caution people against exploring these principles because I don't know where you are spiritually. I know when they drew me in, I was homeless and I was like selling drugs and everything. Probably shouldn't have been the guy looking into the abyss at that point. I mean, now in hindsight, it worked out for me. But so we caution people against it just because I don't know you. I'm never going to advocate for you doing these things because I don't know where you are in your life. But for my own particular story, yeah, that's how I got here. So, I guess everybody's got their own path, right?
Yeah, yeah. I did see somebody ask if I've ever tried this stuff on psychedelics. No, I haven't. Just want to put that out there.
Never. That
No.
didn't come up in your thought process. It seems like it would have been right there.
No, actually, believe it or not, after fucking with magic, I'm a little bit more afraid to fuck with psychedelics.
Interesting.
Do you think? Yeah. Do you think? All right. So I'm a believer that there's like multiple realms layered on top of wherever we're at. So
I think
when you went to wherever you went, was this the same place? Is this the same place that you always go when you do this sort of a ritual?
yeah, there's even like one of the logos that I use now. That's like it's an image that I had Mario from Symbolic Studies. I had him basically make an image of a visual before I crossed the abyss, and I have that eclipse. And at some point, the easiest way for me to explain it, and I had him design it as like movie reels, but it's like these things that look like cells, like movie cells on a reel. It's kind of like not a square, but it's like a rectangle, whatever. These like windows, almost looking things coming out of it and going past you real slow. In my opinion, I do think you can start kind of going into those because they all look like different times and places and time and space. I couldn't tell you even where it is. It just looks like different visions from different times and places. And one time I was interested for some reason. I don't know why. I see these things all the time and I really don't pay it no mind. I just keep on looking at the eclipse and waiting for it to start to separate. And one time I guess I got intrigued by one of these things, and it's like my vision. Again, when I'm having this experience, my body's not there. It's just a vision that I'm seeing. I kind of like went forward and like turned, and like my vision just like went into the window. And like to me, like I joke around, but it's like I couldn't tell what it was. I was like, is that a nuclear fallout or is it Arizona? Like it just didn't look welcoming. Nobody was there. It just looked like desolate. And I was like, yeah, that doesn't look like a good place for me to go. And then all of a sudden I snapped out of it. And I'm assuming it's because I started thinking of self again. But every other time I just normally focus on the middle and then like all this other stuff happens. But in my opinion, I do have a feeling that those things can be played with.
Yeah,
I'm not even risking. If I was to fuck with magic again, I'm not going to do that. I don't think.
I wouldn't blame you, dude. I mean, you're describing someone that a testimony I've heard of someone that does astral projection, and they said it feels like they're on train tracks, where obviously.
I've used that as an expression before. I say either movie reels or I'll say that like I swear to God, man, I've said it on probably every show. It's like as if I was in the subway or a train station and I had two trains coming down past me and I was looking in the car's windows and they were going really slow. That's exactly how I'll try to sometimes explain those visions too.
Yeah, so they're like they could I suppose that either that they're on the tracks, but you're saying that you're describing the things coming towards you rather than
it will even look like a light on a train coming kind of close towards you.
Interesting.
Yeah, and like again, when I said when you feel that polarity switch, it's like you see this white sphere, this glowing white sphere, just fly at you. At that point, it's like standing on the tracks and watching the train hit you, or like watching like if you pulled the trigger and fucking shot yourself in the head.
It's an interesting thought because so your sole intention every time you do this is to go towards this this eclipse.
Yes, just the white light. Yeah,
not take these detours, but it seems like many people like to get.
I think that is probably more advanced magic, believe it or not.
To take a detour, you mean? Or
yeah. I think that's a little bit more risky too. I think that's when you can get caught out there, possibly.
What do you think of this idea that when you're experiencing these things, you are tethered to, but still leaving your physical body? There's a lot of people that express the idea of like, let's say astral projection or
that's what I think
like
astral projection is. Yeah,
that you leave your physical form vulnerable to something else inhabiting it for a period of time.
Yeah, I do think that does happen too.
And so then what do you make of the nature of the things that seek to inhabit your physical form?
I think that's an issue. I don't think that's a positive thing. In my opinion, I don't think that's a good thing. And from some of the ways that I have seen it mentioned in rituals, and again, I really probably didn't understand what I was looking at, but I did understand it was talking about, switching something when the ego leaves or whatever, when the soul leaves. It doesn't look like it's, to me, I don't know what the fuck. Like, how do you know what you're putting in? That's just dangerous, in my opinion. I don't know any other way to explain it. It's just fucking weird to me doing something like that. I don't think that's probably fucking with some weird shit.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Like your time in the OTO, did you come across or like hear from other people that have done something like that? Like have done this sort of meditation that you've done, but taken these other paths?
No. I would totally honest with you, with the whole time I was in the OTO, I never had anybody even say anything about an experience close to what I just explained, or ever admitted to fucking with magic to that extent of crossing the abyss. I've never even heard. To me, that's always like another thing. Like, there was many reasons why I left that place, but that was one of them, is because I was like, yo, like, you can't tell motherfuckers this is what magic is. Because this is a little bit different than, like, I'm sure what 99.9% people here expect. Like, you're so off fucking base, but like your image that you project is completely fucking off. I don't get it.
It's weird because I feel the same way almost.
I just think it's a psyop in itself.
I feel the same way about the church, where they I was going my whole life and I didn't understand what God or even what the Bible was saying until I went down the path myself and really tried to understand it. It's going to give you this weird cursory understanding, this whitewashed version of what this much larger picture is. And it's up to you to go figure that out for yourself.
Yeah. Well, I even will say, like, even one thing, like, too, it's like, how many things are constantly said and we just dismiss as like a different way. Like, even for me, how many times have I had to hear death and a rebirth, death and a rebirth, death and a rebirth? And I never once took death as literal, but it's been said to me fucking how many times, and it's in how many things. And we just don't, for some reason, don't want to take that death literal. Or at least I didn't, but it was for me. But it's been said to me how many times?
It's an interesting.
So it's like how much stuff is actually being said literal to us in texts or books.
Yeah.
For some reason, we just, maybe because it's easier for the mind and the heart to accept, we downplay it, something silly.
Well, I feel as though a lot of our culture has been engineered in such a way as to produce a fear of death, like a tremendous fear of death.
Yeah. My experience is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced.
Right. So this is something that awaits us all. It is it's a part of every single living being's journey in this realm that we inhabit. And for some reason, we're fucking mortified of it. It plagues us. I remember being a kid and having my first realization that, like, I'm going to die and everybody that I love is going to die one day. And I'm just fucking like, it made for like 2 months of not being able to sleep at night when I was little. And obviously, you figure out how to compartmentalize that and you move on with your life, but that's it. Right? I didn't learn how to deal with it. I learned how to compartmentalize it and to not think about anymore, because it was still this horrifying, chaotic abyss waiting on the horizon for me and everybody that I loved. And so as an adult, you just keep moving through and you get so inundated with just the shit of life that luckily that burden outweighs the burden of thinking about your own impending doom. But we don't in the West have a healthy way of dealing with it at all. And so it's like I had a dream once where I was, I talk about this often because it's just like certain dreams really stick out, but I was on a pipe in the sky, like a narrow, skinny pipe, and I'm walking and I don't care if I fall to one way or another, but there's a dude behind me that does. He's like naked and he's holding this pipe and he's terrified. And I look to him and I go, we have to make a pact that we never forget where we came from. And then I fall off the pipe willingly, which is certainly death because it's suspended in the air, like in the sky, in the clouds. And then I fall through a giant hole in the ground and there's a fucking giant tree, like a tree with a tree trunk, the circumference of a town or something like that. And it's huge and it's got all this glitter dust. But I think the point is, like, I'm caught up. I no longer fall. I'm caught up in the sort of the gold glitter dust that's pouring off this tree's leaves, and I'm suspended in air. And it never left me. It never left me. I had that when I was a kid. But what it does scream is like it's everything is on the other side of fear. I mean, like that's like the overwhelming message that I get in everything. It doesn't matter if it's your pursuit, whether it's your pursuit in a romantic situation, your pursuit in a career decision for the rest of your, even as simple as your pursuit to, oh, do I want to have children? And it's like, no, I don't want to have children. I'm not ready yet. I don't have the career that I want. I don't have the finances and things aren't where it's like fear is the thing that keeps people from taking the next step in any journey. And I don't think we're here to not take part in this journey. I mean, earlier on in the show, we're talking about this concept of like the hero's journey. I think that is what we're all here. We're all given the ability. We can go if we choose on this journey, or we can keep fear as the motivator for us not taking that first step. And it's like, it's in everything, man. And going back to the conversation we were having before, it's like, I've heard that in the Bible, it says fear not 365 times. I've also heard that's a bit of a misnomer. What's not a misnomer though, is that is an overarching message within the Bible and within so many things is don't give in to fear. That is the thing that's going to stop you. And I don't know, it just strikes me that so much of this conversation, it's like, one way or another, whether it's psychedelically or rather psychologically or in a more physical realm, it's a battle with fear constantly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everything you said, I think was spot on, my man. Yeah, I do think fear is the killer. You know, I've said plenty of times, even on my own show, you know, because whatever, people will put you up on pedestals, idolize you to an extent. It's just going to happen when it comes to podcasting. And I've even said the difference between me and the listeners, I just lack the fear of podcasting. I just lack the fear of getting behind the mic and hitting record. It's the only difference between me and them. Nobody that special.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that. I always tell people, if I could do it, you could do it, but it's just a decision.
Especially if I can,
especially if I could do it, you could definitely do it. You probably do it way better than what I'm doing.
Yeah, exactly.
Make that decision, baby.
Like a bull in a china shop trying to do it, but I'm making it happen.
Nick, what do you think about this idea that within this death and experiencing this light, this just brings it to my mind because you talked about something reminiscent of it, that this is a sort of karmic trap, a loop. In other words, if you die, there are these entities, one way or another, that seek to feed off you and keep you in this reincarnation loop. And so that actually going towards the light is I've heard it likened to like that's the lights in another hospital room, and you're being birthed again. And I don't know that if that's, who knows what's true, but
what's interesting with that, you have to think about it. We come in with a flash of light, and my experience, I'm going out with one.
Yeah. We've talked about that before. I think the light plays a tremendous role in all this. Like when it comes to the imprint on the Shroud of Turin, which they recently just dated to about 2,000 years ago. And so previously it was a lot more contention around how old it was. It seems that they've gotten that out. But we were speculating, which is all we're good for, on how that imprint got on the shroud. And we kind of kicked around this idea of like when a sperm inseminates an egg, there is an mysterious flash of light. Scientists, they don't know what to make of it, but there is a discernible flash of light. Now what happens? That's on a microscopic level of a sperm fertilizing an egg. What happens when a spirit re-enters the body of an adult male? Is the light more substantial, and does that light then burn an impression into this cloth? But it does seem like this light thing is huge. You even said that there is light that comes out of our eyes, I think at one point you said.
Yeah. We do project out 6 feet. I mean, and technically, like, not to make it sound weird, but we technically are like biological AI, solar powered biological AI. We look at the sun, the light comes in, we decode stuff and power our bodies with it. Yeah, once it hits the optic nerve, it turns into electricity, and that's all your impulses, your nerves, your thoughts, all that shit. So, I mean, basically, what do we... It's really weird if you start thinking about how your eyes and the sun and all that shit works.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Ed Mabry?
I am, because I saw him on your YouTube channel.
Yeah, Ed's a great guy. And one of the things that he first talked about when he came on our show was this idea that if God is light and light is the modality of communication between neurological synapses, one atom to another. Everything is an electronic impulse, right? It's a flash of light, is how your cells are communicating with one another. And if God is light, then there might be an issue here that explains why we're so distant from him now. And it's that Ed believes the speed of light is not a constant. So whatever the speed of light, I'm retarded. So let's say
that is true, because the speed of light actually is slower through water.
And it's also allegedly, according to Ed Mabry, I can't confirm this. I'm not smart. But he says that the speed of light is slowing down. And has been slowing down.
On that, I have seen stuff on that, and there's actually there's some good proof on that.
So basically, the way he says it is,
that's interesting. Wow, that's pretty cool. He talked about that.
Thousands of years ago, we would have been much more robust, because our cells, if the speed of light is slowing down, that means that the communication between our cells is also slowing down. So if you could speed that process up thousands of years ago when we were closer to God, then we would be much hardier. We might even live for hundreds of years, right?
Yeah.
And so, and then the other thing,
much larger, things. Really
yes, much
harder.
larger, and also that our perception of the spiritual realm would have been much more acute, because the spiritual realm just would have been more perceivable, more easily perceivable by us. But since he says that there was multiple incursions, like the garden, and what happened in the garden would have been one incursion that caused the speed of light to slow down dramatically. And really what that is representative of is the speed of light slowing down, or are we getting further away from the source of it? And if we're getting further away from the source of it, and light is God, then we're getting further away from God, which would, kind of explain why we're falling apart,
right.
Why we can't perceive the spiritual realm. Our ancestors seem to have it mapped out so much better than we do. Tucker Carlson was just talking about how we in the West have a detachment from the spiritual realm. He thinks it's malicious, or it's on purpose. I think I'm paraphrasing.
Biblically, what we're talking about is like from human beings talking and walking with God. Mm-hmm. Alongside to then Moses talking with God, but he can't look at him, and he can only see him as he walks by. He's like a fire. Then it goes to like, all right, listen, here's the law. Here's some set of stones, but I'm around. I'm in the sky, all the way to like, I just got to send my son, because so you can see the perceived distance of if this is the light. And many other religions will call this the sun god, or the ultimate god. They'll call this deity the overarching God that is the sun. And I don't think that they're completely wrong. I think that there's a lot of truth in what these people are saying, because there is something about that, this light that is on the earth. But has it gotten further away? Well, I think so. There's many stories that say that it has gotten further away. Even science will tell you this, that constitutionally we're constitutionally less, because of the distance between this thing, this light, this source of light, and our bodies. And that's just kind of, it's interesting to think about it that way. So yeah, if that is true, it would make it a lot harder for the interdimensional, the spiritual realm to access us, or to even reproduce with us, which I think that they were doing before. Like if human females were a little bit hardier, Ed Mabry likes to say they would be able to take a pounding a little more readily. And then you get your ancient beings that we like to talk about on this show. Now not so much. Now it's more of a, it seems like we're doing it with AI. I like that you brought up the idea of AI, because we are right. We are this.
Well, you can think about how like we get our parents pop us out and program us.
Yeah, dude.
I mean, what the fuck? Like half of us are here because somebody wanted a toy, for fuck's sake.
It's irresponsible. I mean, when you're thinking about like such a tremendous creation that like what we are, we can grow out of just a spark of light, basically, into full-grown human beings making horrible decisions, like doing podcasts. It really gets you to think about what. I think what we think the alien agenda is, which is some sort of a breeding program that they can't seem to nail. I don't know how deep you go on aliens, or what you even think about this stuff.
Aliens, I think for the most part, just my experience, I could see the alien story being a really good way to sell a magical experience.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure some people have had experiences where they do believe that's what happened, and I couldn't explain that. But some people, I do. I just think some, like, even look at Crowley. I mean, the first idea that we had of a gray was from fucking him.
Right.
You know, who knows what he was trying to depict in symbolism with that.
Well,
what's your idea on aliens, like as far as your magical experiences have gone?
For me, I have a hard time believing. All right, put it this way: I don't believe what we even see out in the skies is true. You know, I find that hard to believe, like what we've been told about that. I mean, even just real quick, just to even just bring it up, the first model that we had before the one that we have now, the last two models of our ideas of what's going on out there was given to us by occultists.
Mm.
But they were alchemists and occultists, so I don't know if I can take what they're saying to me out there word for word.
Right.
So just the whole thing, even with me, in my opinion, it's going to sound crazy. I think a lot of what's out there is just a reflection of the inside of our eyeball. So, like, how do I even explain planets and aliens thinking that way? I can't really.
Well, it's interesting because those principles of
sense.
like as above, so below, or as within, so without, like those kind of things, and that does just speak to the fractal nature of reality, which, you know, even if you're looking at like quantum physicists and such, they're confirming to whatever degree that, yeah, whatever happens on the micro is also happening on the macro. And as far as you can zoom in and as far as you can zoom out, you'll find the patterns repeating.
I agree with you, Nick. I think like what we're seeing out there, as far as outer space, I don't believe it, and I don't believe in aliens per se, but it's just a nice, you know, it's a nice word to give when we're talking to people, so that we
It's almost an archetype in itself.
Yeah, it's an archetype. It's a way to understand what I'm trying to convey and express. But I like that idea of like, you're looking out there and you're saying, when I look at the sky, the night sky, and you're seeing the stars in the dark, it's the same thing you see when you close your eyes. It's like, well, maybe like as we look at the night sky, it is like we're looking into the interdimensional. I don't think that they come from other planets. I don't think that this Earth is necessarily even round. I don't know what shape it is, but I know that we can't get off of it. I'm pretty sure of that.
Because I keep watching this asshole smash his rockets into the firmament.
Yeah, he flies.
Yeah, right.
Just dings them off the
Dude,
firmament.
I'm sorry. Every time I see that, it just looks like something, like it even behaves as if it's moving through water, and then the way that it, like, there's moments where it looks like it splashes against some sort of unperceivable but still physical.
The old golf
yeah,
clap.
and it's all weird.
Can you show images on your show?
Yeah. You got something you want to share?
Yeah. I'll try to find another one too. I don't know if next time people actually watch what's his face.
There you go. So this is what you were talking about before, and I didn't know if I should go there yet, but the way that the eye seems to mimic this enclosed system that we're allegedly in.
Besides that, if you were to ever watch Elon Musk launch off his rockets, and when they show you the whole bottom screen with all those little numbers going and all that shit, this is exactly what the fuck you're looking at.
Yeah. It's always curved, by the way, too.
That
the trajectory is always fucking, you know, it's you're like, that's not going up, dog. That's going fucking across. Like every time I'm like, am I retarded? I just can't perceive things the right way. Once they're too high in the sky, up looks like across. Yeah, it's strange to me. There's a lot of shit that they just kind of lean on our gullibility. I feel like they're like, yeah, don't believe what your eyes are saying. I know that your eyes are saying this thing's traveling horizontally across the horizon, but trust me, it's going up.
Yeah.
Like,
but I do find it interesting whenever you show Elon Musk, like showing his like blast off platform. This is the exact design that he has on the bottom of the screen, showing everything. And
that is
the eyeball. Yeah, I think a lot of his stuff is actually eyeball symbolism. That's just my opinion.
So before, Nick, you were talking about this orphic egg, and right now we're talking a little bit about Lamb, right, and how he was kind of the archetype for the alien gray. And there's a quote that was attributed to so Crowley does like the Amalantra workings, and one way or another ends up communing with this entity. He draws a picture of it. It looks like a fucking alien gray, and allegedly there's a quote attributed to Lamb that says something to the effect of, it's all in the egg, which is like some sort of cryptic revelation. And I don't know, I can't confirm that that's what, you know, something that this thing said to him, but we are in the middle of, I don't know, like this egg event. Right. So we were talking about the orphic egg, and within the UAP disclosure kind of realm, all of a sudden eggs have popped up on the radar. And there's even this moment recently. We showed it on a show where this guy is pointing to this orb in the sky, and when you zoom in on it, it is an egg-shaped glowing orb with what looks like a snake coiled around it, right? So this is something that I'm not terribly familiar with. I do a little bit of a deep dive and find out maybe I should be informed about this thing, because it's at the center of the creation mythos of a shit ton of different sort of ancient religions. And I mean, from Egyptian, I think even Norse mythology has a version. The Vedics have, an egg in the beginning of their mythos. It's literally their creation mythos. The egg cracks open, the top half becomes the firmament, the lower half becomes the earth. And this is like a little bit different. There's some nuances from one to another, but basically either the egg itself cracks open and creates earth and the realm that we inhabit, or the egg cracks open and a creator deity comes out of it and they create the earth, or the creator deity comes out, births another deity, and that deity creates the earth. But it's all of it is seemingly wrapped up in this creation mythos. But from what you're talking about, Nick, this thing seems to bear not a resemblance, but it has a connection to the human eye once again.
Yes, that's what I think. Even in your eye, when your hyaloid canal, your pupil and the zonules zin, how to explain this? Your lens actually is held by the zonules zin, and they will either bending it back or just pushing it forward will either make your pupil big or small. When you pull it back and make it small, it spirals closed and sucks light into your eye that way. And I do think, again, it spirals closed and it pulls open like a cross, which is something I do even want to bring up. And this is just a theory of mine, and I'm going to throw it out there. These rituals, a lot of these rituals I'm doing, I'm in a black robe with that hood on, and I'm going to the four corners and destroying these things, or doing whatever I'm doing, but spinning in a circle at the same time. I honestly think the black hood and the black robe is the pupil spinning closed, and I'm destroying the four corners that are pulling it open. And now I'm closing the pupil. And I'm sucking, because now I'm going to invoke, right? I'm pulling the light in. That's exactly what I'm doing with the pupil. I'm pulling it closed and sucking light into the back of my head.
That's interesting. I knew Top was going to do this. He's pulling up. But this is worth mentioning, too. Shout out Matthew Lane. Says, Year of the Snake. Is it interesting that as soon as the Year of the Snake kicks off, we start getting this egg symbolism, the orphic egg?
I think so.
This is what we do in black robes at Bohemian Grove.
Yeah.
These people are ridiculous.
Semi-annual events. The audience is dressed up in Nephilim Death Squad cloaks. And I don't know what the fuck we're doing. I don't
We
know
even
what
have this guy out there now. I think he was talking about. There was some dude I saw talking about some experience that he had. I think with aliens or whatever. And there's like some video too where it's like showing like this tether looking thing, and it looks like it's a sphere, but if you look at it closely, it's like an egg actually. And it's going around saying it's a UFO, and I was like, if you actually zoom in on that, it's an egg. It's not a circle. It's an egg.
No, it's 100% an egg, and there's a second one.
And it's hanging from like a rope. So now just roll that up, and you got the fucking orphic egg again.
Well, yeah, they're airlifting it. This is I don't know if I want to call it a psychological operation, because that seems dismissive. I don't think that all psychological operations are hollow. Sometimes I think they're priming us for a series of events that's about to unfold. And right now it seems like it's this egg situation. So you have this moment where the Stephen Greers and Luis Elizondos of the world, kind of like the federal arm of the mascots for fucking UAP disclosure. So these guys are saying, watch out, something's going to happen today. And I go, surely it's going to be gay, but I'll keep an eye out for it. And sure enough, we do get, like, all of a sudden this video emerges of them airlifting this fucking egg out of a mountainscape. And then what ends up happening is somebody, a whistleblower online on 4chan, very trustworthy, comes out and says, here's another egg video. Yeah. Here's another egg video, and also I am a whistleblower of sorts, military intelligence clearance, yada, yada, yada. But the two things that were birthed out of his video that are very fascinating is, one, when you zoom in on the egg, it is covered in, what was the language? It was hierarchical something or another, but it was basically a language that would only have been used by the priest class of Greece and Egypt. And there are these symbols, sure enough, all imprinted all over the surface of this egg. And the other thing that was found with the egg, allegedly, according to this very trustworthy whistleblower from 4chan, is that there was a entity in a stasis bed, basically like a med bed sort of situation. And, you know, they woke him up, and he's a tall Nord. You know how that's like one of the fucking genres of aliens that he's a tall Nord, and he's got a lot to say. And interestingly enough, one of the things that he said was that the closest we ever had to understanding God was when we were adhering to like the Hermetic text or something like that, more or less. These things that are the foundations for much of Gnosticism as it exists today. So I don't know what's coming, but this egg thing does. I mean, yeah, it's somebody said in the chat that snakes also lay eggs, so these things are tied together. Also, your eyeball is not a perfect sphere, right? It does have a pointed tip when it comes to your lens on your eyeball. It makes an egg. So yeah, I think you're really onto something here, Nick. When you come to this correlation between the eye, the egg, Lucifer, the serpent, and all of these things, they're all seemingly, orbiting one another.
Yeah. If you want, real quick, I just want so I can give people an example. If you want to pull up this piece of art, I could show you. Now, this is the birth of Venus.
Oh, I've seen this. Okay, go on.
And that's the eyeball.
Mm-hmm. And Venus, by the way, is the planet associated with Lucifer, is it not?
Yeah, well, she's standing in this sort of shell. So what are you representing with that eyeball there? What's that?
You can see it's virtually the same thing. I mean, she would be representative of the optic nerve, and then what is that called? The
Source would be like the shell, and then she's standing on the lens. And
this is the same thing.
In front of the lens is where you have the water. And that little area in front of the lens is where they have the aqueous humor, and then the vitreous humor in the back is where the blood is.
Interesting. This is very reminiscent of what's that famous painting where the fingers are reaching towards each other?
Yes. Yo, you know the Vatican. I went to the Vatican within the last year. I went to Italy. They actually do accept that as being the brain now.
I mean, it's pretty uncanny. And where is
when they said that on the tour, I was like, what the fuck? Wow, you're actually acknowledging that physiology is part of this shit.
This is the thing that I think a lot of Christianity is dropping the ball, because they basically tell you not to don't look at this, don't worry about this, and it's all heretical or one thing or another. And it's like, well, you got a real problem if any of this is true. And the problem isn't that it diminishes Christianity. The problem is that you're not helping to unpack this, and that is causing certainly a distrust for these religious institutions, or towards these religious institutions. But I look at that, and I can't deny that I see that. And then it's like, well, what do you make of it? Because the church not going to help you understand that. So you have the very organizations that you've been accusing of just being satanic or Luciferian. It's like, well,
not good.
All right, I guess you don't get to learn about it then. You don't get to know what this is, and that's a problem.
From like the 1200s to the 1600s to 1700s, I'd even push the 1600s in the Catholic Church. The people who made some of the biggest breakthroughs and stuff were applying physiology.
Yeah,
they're applying anatomy to understanding.
Well, stuff. And what I want to say about that too is I don't think that it has to be reductive. In other words, I don't think that you have to look at this and say, oh, all spirituality is just an anagram or rather a metaphor for the anatomy of human beings. It's like, no, I don't think it's just that. It is that, and it's also many other things. So like Top says, it's like this realm is multiple realms layered over one another.
It's like slices.
Yes, you don't have to look at this and be like, oh no. Even for me, it's like I believe that Lucifer is an actual entity. But also, is there some correlation between the celestial body of Venus, and is there also some correlation with our eyeball and our own anatomy? It's like, yeah, all those things. I think all those things are true, and they're all layered on top of one another. But I think much of what Christianity does is it looks at these concepts and it sees them as pulling away the actual, how do I put this? It removes a layer of reality and makes it so that it's all just analogous. And I don't think that is the case at all. I think that this realm is rich with layers. It's like, we've talked about it a lot where there's this idea that you can take this oil that's produced in your spine. You have 33 vertebrae in the spine. That's why Christ lived 33 years. And there's a oil in your spine called Christos. If you can migrate this to your pineal gland through meditation, then you can achieve some sort of like ascended masterhood, or even that the sun is representative of Christ, and the sun rests on the celestial crux for 3 days before the days become longer, during the winter solstice or after the winter solstice. And that is reminiscent of, or at least metaphorical for, the resurrection of Christ. And it's like, Jesus Christ doesn't have to be the sun in the sky. It's like whatever this realm was, it's created. And there are echoes of this very important story all the way throughout it, wherever you're willing to look. And just because you lock on to one does not dismiss all of the other instances of that. And so that's the thing that has been driving me nuts. And I fear that in a time where, I don't know if you agree with this, Nick, it feels like spiritually things are getting heightened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
And a lot of people are not going to have a roadmap. And that's going to cause what I would say is a hasty falling away. I don't think you should, there are many ways in which the church has dropped the ball, but I don't think that you should throw the baby out with the bathwater. So if something happens in the near future that uproots your understanding of the spiritual realm, then you might just feel like you need to, detach yourself and get in and spiral and freak out and grab onto the first thing that makes sense to you, which is what a lot of people do when they first wake up. When you first wake up, you tend to fall for a bunch of dumb shit that's not true because...
Oh, it's happened to me.
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's happened to me so much. I'm fucking so wrong all the time. All the time, dude. So that's my big fear right now, is that these things are ancient and have stuck around for a reason. And we're going to go through some shit soon, I think, that a lot of people are just going to start tossing things in the trash.
Yeah. No, I just think even from the idolization of politicians right now and just people in general, that shows you that people are lost. We're going the wrong way. We're looking for fixes of our fear in man instead of ourselves or God. Trump is going to fix everything for me, or Kamala Harris is going to fix everything for me. Get the fuck out of here.
That's how it goes.
But
that's everything that we've been inundated with, right? We started.
Oh yeah, I believe that shit too. At some point.
Oh no, yeah. Well, I was balls deep into the Q thing.
Oh,
like,
so
when it
it's
first happened, I was like, "Fucking!" I'm trying to tell all my friends they're fucking drinking babies, dude, and fucking nobody wants to listen to me at all.
Yeah, then I was like, too much of this shit seems like it just started. A lot of stuff with occultism started popping up, and I was like, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And then he had that whole he had the Kingmaker ritual, I think, is that it, or the Kill King ritual or something like that, right? When he takes
I remember the Kingmaker. I think I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's basically the assassination attempt, where it's like he has blood on his right ear, blood on his right hand, and blood on his right foot because his shoe is off. Mysteriously, like he's got no shoe on, so he's going through a ritual right before our eyes, but we're looking at it as an assassination attempt. I don't know, it's all
that was the king kill ritual, and that
the king kill ritual. Thank you.
Some would say that the king that was killed there would have been Joe Biden, because right after that he steps down. It's all really weird, symbolic, esoteric stuff. If you're looking closer, we were some of the first people to call it out, and we were like, that didn't look real at all. And I still don't.
His ear looks fine now.
It's weird.
Yeah.
His ear looks better than fine. His skin looks great, by the way. When they fucking zoom in on that guy for the inauguration photo, I'm like, he's got.
Oh yeah, he didn't look like an orange man as much.
No, he didn't look like an orange man. He looked healthy and hydrated, and I'm like, this guy's got great skin for being fucking really old. But yeah, his ear looks perfectly fine. Go figure. It's weird because it's not even like they're trying to hide that, right? It's like even in the picture, his other ear is covered. And that ear is favoring the camera, so you can like really put that bitch in 4K and zoom in on it and be like, "There's no fucking discernible wound here."
Nope. This is a magical act right there.
Very strange. Very strange. Yeah. That's my fear, though, is that we've been stripped of our understanding of the spiritual realm, and we've been inundated by fear, or with fear, by this propaganda machine, right? Because it's like we're all pretty comfortable with if it bleeds, it leads. So what have we been doing? We've just been basking in just fucking like this trauma cycle from the media.
Oh yeah, MK Ultra.
MK Ultra. Right.
Well, if you could fear somebody, it'll probably make it easier for you to love them. And then you had mentioned that the host or the host would need to love its parasite in order for these rituals to be successful. Seems like that's where we're at here.
Yeah, well, it would be forced fear, and then it's like you force-fed fear, and it's like, well, here's your savior. Yeah, I'm just going to use Trump as an example because it's just an easy thing to pick. I think both sides suck. And then you fall in love with him because you think he's going to make everything better. You fall in love with his jokes. You fall in love with his trolling. You fall in love with the stupid shit he says. You think he's fucking funny. Mm-hmm. People fall in love with fucking newscasters. They think they know who they are, and it's like you just know the 30 minutes a day that they show you. Right. You don't know jack shit who the hell they are.
This is a strong one too. We've been beating the drum on Trump. I really like Trump, but a lot of the things here that you're going to see him do, it's been 2 weeks, right? And he's used just basically executive orders to sort of turn around and right the country in a certain. I mean, it's in an obvious kind of way. He's like, I just signed an executive order. There's only 2 genders, is like there always was, but now it's just like it seems like these are problems that are created that now are going to be attributed to somebody that did very little to fix them. The economic problems, the problems, I mean, with the border, like these are simple things, but I'm very I'm glad that he did it because it's getting fucking out of control. It was out of control, and it was to the point where we're like, yo, we need somebody to actually come in and stop the bleeding. And he came in and it's like, yeah, he signed a couple of papers, stop the bleeding. This is obvious shit.
You know what's interesting? When Kobe crashed in his helicopter, Trump was trying to shut down the border for health reasons. And now we just had a helicopter crash and he's shutting the border down.
Ooh. Dude, did you see? I mean, the helicopter, we got fucking the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Philadelphia Eagles. This fucking plane takes off from Kansas City and then nosedives into Philadelphia. Like,
what the fuck?
What are we doing here? I don't fucking believe that. I mean, I obviously know some shit crash landed, whatever the fuck it was. I don't even know if it was a plane. But I look at that and I'm like, it's
the plane of the Black Hawk. The plane was going to runway 33 for fuck's sakes.
I know.
So ridiculous. And then, by the way, the Kansas City, the Philadelphia Eagles made a tweet like a couple of days right before it about a helicopter. Like it was a helicopter they made. Well, you know how you could take like some symbols off your keyboard and fucking keep. I don't know how people do that, but they make a post and somehow all the symbols on their keyboard they make a whole fucking helicopter. It was like that, something like that. And then sure enough, right after that, this helicopter crashes. And by the way, we just watched this helicopter fucking. It's the most slow motion like a horrific moment in the world. It's like, here's the plane and fucking just here comes the fucking helicopter. And it's like 5 minutes and this fucking helicopter is still coming and it's not turning. Nobody's making any fucking effort whatsoever.
I don't understand how that happened like that unless it was suicide or done on purpose.
It would be very hard to do. Like, honestly, if you think about flying in 3-dimensional like space, not space, but 3-dimensional space to cut off an airplane, it's not easy to do. That's got to be intentional. You don't do it by accident.
When they were doing like a public announcement about it, I think maybe last night or the night before, they even said that the drill that they were doing required them to wear night vision.
Yeah.
So technically they should have been wearing those too. And it's like, how the fuck did you not see this? And the weird thing is the plane, I think, is at 325 feet and the helicopter's at 200 during the collision. So where's the 125 feet?
That doesn't make sense.
I didn't know that.
We do that too.
Another thing that I threw in there yesterday at shout out to Great Pilled Podcast with Jules.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I was on there because I'm binging Breaking Bad again, and I'm up to the season. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but spoiler alert: there's a season where Jesse's girlfriend ODs.
Oh yeah.
Her father's an air traffic controller, and that season culminates where the beginning of every episode of that season, they're showing Walt's pool, and he has like different debris in his pool or in his yard, and people, they're collecting evidence, and you're assuming that it's going to be part of the drug trade that he's doing, but no, it's this event that happens. The father, that's an air traffic controller, is distracted or distraught, and he accidentally directs 2 planes into each other, and they crash midair. And it's just funny that I was like, oh, I want to watch this. This is a great show. And I watched it. And 2 days before I watched this I didn't remember the show at all. I was like, oh my God. It was like, is this predictive programming in 2016? Because that's when this.
That too. I thought that was whole weird. That whole
Yeah,
Tanya Harding
fucking-
thing coming back out too. I was like, what the fuck?
And it wasn't just Tanya Harding either. Apparently, there was like a couple of others. So yeah, Silent G says Tanya Harding made a tweet the morning of the crash after 10 years of. That's even fucking unheard of. 10 years of no social media, and then the most famous figure skater in the world tweets on the morning that a bunch of figure skating children fucking die in this helicopter.
And this is why it's like, so now we're talking about ice skating, and now I feel like
yeah, dude.
But the Breaking Bad thing it's directly dealing with the cartel and Mexico.
Yes.
So we're talking about ice skating, Breaking Bad with the cartel. I'm like, oh, what the fuck, dude?
It's
just a
all of it
bukkake of
feels-
information.
Oh, and
It's
ICE
so
is even
funny.
on a rampage in our country right now too.
That's it. That's it, man. That's what I'm saying. So whatever's going on with Trump, to me, it feels like, I mean, this is coming from a guy who wrote The Art of the Deal, or The Art of the Comeback, right? Was it The Art of the Comeback?
Or something like that.
Or was it The Art of the Deal?
You might have
Art of the
wrote
Deal.
both.
Yeah, I don't know if you see that, look that up. But what I see is like this theatrical comeback story, right? Where like you have this guy, he gets in, he does pretty good, but he gets wrongly accused and criticized for all kinds of shit that's paper thin. Anybody with a critical thinking, or the ability to critically think, sees that they're just levying a bunch of paper thin shit at him, and it all falls apart over and over again, but it still ruins his reputation. And then he gets kicked out, and the fucking dude that takes his place just nosedives the entire country into Philadelphia, and everybody is watching this shit show. He's a corpse. He's shitting his pants. We're all going, oh my God, this is so bad. Then we finally get the guy back, and he just goes on a rampage and starts doing all the shit that we want him to do. I'm like, this is fucking theater. This is theater.
Wrote both books. So he did. I have The Art of the Deal here, but he wrote The Art of the Comeback as well, talking about how he's gone into debt and bankruptcy so many times and came back from it.
Yeah, well, he fucking right now is performing the ultimate version of The Art of the Comeback, and to me, it's all theater, and it goes back to that.
No.
Apparently, this is a big misnomer as well, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to continue spreading this fake quote. But it was what Albert Pike in Morals and Dogma that said, "When the people need a hero, we shall provide one for them." Apparently, that's oversimplifying the quote from Albert Pike, but I think still. That's what we're being subjected to. It's like they create, it's a Hegelian dialect kind of a deal. Like they'll create this scenario, they'll wait for this big reaction, and then they'll slide this character in for us to clamor around. And right now, I think we're seeing in a guy who I like, who's very entertaining, who I do think is funny, and I do like his policies and his legislation. We're seeing the ultimate version of that unfolding right now. And I don't know where this goes. I mean, I got a bunch of ideas, but I don't think it's anywhere good. And I think we probably do go to a golden age, but it's more like a Blavatsky, Alice Bailey golden age. And I think it's only temporary until some shit happens. It's like, what does the Bible say when they say peace and prosperity, or peace and safety, sudden destruction shall fall upon them? I think that's kind of probably what we're going to be subjected to soon.
I could agree with that. I think things are going to get weird for sure in the next 4 years.
Well, look, we're at the hour and 45-minute mark. This is a great conversation, Nick. I would love to have you back in the future. Yeah, man. It went to places I didn't know we were going to end up going, but very fascinating stuff. So for the people, one more time, let everybody know where they can find you, Nick.
The Occult Rejects, and that is on BitChute, Rumble, and YouTube, and all major podcasts. And then we do have the Occult Research Institute. You can check out there. And yeah, that's where you can find all the stuff. Thank you.
Hell yeah, man.
Awesome.
All right. Again, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for coming on. We're going to be chatting soon. And guys, until another 2 hours when we see you again, we'll be back on. Don't forget to obey, submit, and comply. We'll see you later, guys. Peace out.
The greatest hypnotist on planet Earth is a oblong box in the corner of the room. It is constantly telling us what to believe is real. If you can persuade people that what they see with their eyes is what there is to see, to go. Because they'll laugh in the face of an explanation that portrays the bigger picture of what's happening. And they have.